Welcome to another episode of The Second Coming. I'm here with Brother T. I'm your host, Jason Keaton. We're so excited to have you with us today. Your involvement. Today I'm going to take a question from Colleen, who wrote in with a great question for Brother T. But right before I do that, how you doing, Brother T?
I'm doing great, my friend. I got a new, I'm traveling and I've kind of got a new setting here. I'll be here. Might even get a couple of episodes in at this setting here, but kind of exciting to be in a new environment, to be setting up in a new place, and we'll see how it goes, but I'm excited. Period.
Yeah, excellent. So, and we're excited to have you here with us. Please support us. You can do it at support.truethought.org, or like, share, subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, any Substack. It's your involvement is critical to our success in bringing this message to everyone. So, Brother T, I have this question, and it's from one of our viewers, Colleen, and she has she's well on her spiritual journey, and she's been studying with different teachers, and she's at a crossroads of understanding when it comes to karma versus free will. And so she's had teachers tell her that, well, everything's predetermined, everything's karma, that's the agreement that you had, even to the point where she used an example of a neighbor boy was accidentally murdered by three other neighbor boys, and she was confused. Was that all of their agreement in this lifetime, is to come together and have this what seemed to be horrible experience? And if so, where does free will play into that?
Well, okay. Well, thank you, Colleen. That's an excellent question. We're going to have to bring in some counsel on that one and see what comes forth. So let's take a good deep breath. So we call in our family, we call in our guides, we call in the masters, we call in the angels, and our teachers, of course, as we move into the upper room. We know who we are in truth. We know what we are in truth. We know how we serve in truth. We are free, we are free, we are free. I am here. I am here, I am here. I am in the upper room. Behold, I make all things new. It will be so. God is, God is, God is. Yeah, karma was a sticky wicket for me for a long time, Colleen, so I certainly understand, being a little conflicted about it. And the interesting thing about free will is that everybody has it. The grass has it. The rocks have it. The birds have it, right? And so, what is it about free will? And then how does that work with karma? So I will start with the karma issue. So now if we go back, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but if we go back to past lives as an example, or just go back to events in this life, when we are acting out of alignment with our true self, we are creating experiences for our soul to grow through. Now, this is important to grasp because we're all looking at ourselves as the personality. And, Jason, often I've asked you, I said, which I are you being right now? Is it the I, the ego self? Or is it the I of the true self, that's speaking and expressing as you, right? So when we're in the upper room, we really have to leave the personality behind us, right? And so while we're here, we're really, speaking through spirit from that higher consciousness. We're not creating any karma, right? But all of these experiences, high and low, are learning opportunities, again, for our soul. Now, the ego personality self doesn't always like the experiences that it's having that it kind of signed up for. So when I say signed up for, we literally travel together through many lifetimes, sometimes as groups. I like to see it as these little clusters of grapes on the grapevine. You know, it's a beautiful little cluster of grapes, and they're all kind of have that same vibration, same energy, same expression, same appearance. You know, they look really healthy, or they don't altogether look very healthy, whatever, on that grapevine. But as we're expressing and growing through our incarnations, we do tend to travel as a group of people that are in similar consciousness levels, from what I've understood, right? But we all have our individuated experiences that create karmic, I'm going to call it karmic load or karmic potential, right? So if, as an example, I'm just going to use an extreme example. Let's say that you murdered somebody in a past life. Well, shame on you, right? Well, no, not really. That's a learning opportunity. And in your next life, this person that was in that contract with you, and I say contract because we literally, you know, develop contracts before we incarnate with those that are going to have experiences with in this life to help us to see those past experiences and to release them. And that's what karma is all about. It's about releasing past expressions where we were not operating from our highest opportunity, period. It's not a punishment by any way, shape, form, or fashion. God is not judging. God is not punishing. But the soul that we are, that's reincarnating, it does take advantage of our experiences and the experiences of the ego, because what it's seeing is things, it's learning through those experiences that are creating karma, right? But the point of karma is, if you murdered somebody in a past life, you might get murdered in this one, right? And there are other examples of just family issues and things that come up because we're traveling with the same, you know, group of grapes in our little cluster, right? So no harm, no foul, right? All of these are learning experiences. What we are learning, if you will, from operating at a higher consciousness and operating in the upper room is that when experiences come, and they do, because the soul has kind of set these things up. We have karmic, you know, I don't like using the term debt, but we just have karmic experiences that are kind of, you know, teed up for us to experience, so the soul can learn through those things. And it's not a form of punishment, but it is a comeuppance of our past expressions, if you will. So all that to say, and I know I'm going around and around here, and I hope I'm not confusing you, is that the best thing I can recommend, or I'll just say, speaking for myself, is I have learned not to give it much thought, right? Because the worrying mind is the egoic mind. And the worry doesn't do you any good. And if your soul is set up in an experience and you've got a contract with somebody for an experience, those experiences are going to come up. The point I want to make is, if you can operate and experience those experiences from a higher consciousness, then they don't really have much impact. You're not wringing your hands and gnashing your teeth about things that are happening in your life. You are allowing and accepting and forgiving whatever happens. And so you're at peace. And that can be absolutely accomplished by staying in a higher consciousness in the upper room. And in the upper room, we're also being guided by our true self, okay? In the Bible, it's called the Holy Spirit. Jesus used that term in A Course in Miracles because it references Christianity a lot. But he also says it's nothing more than your right mind. It is your true, capital T, capital S self. And I like to use the expression as well as true mind. Now, these are all aspects of each of us, right? Just like we have our sleeping self, and we experience things in our dreaming state at night that I believe we actually can live out some karmic experiences there as well. But all of this to say, how does karma then tie in with free will? Let's just put it this way. If karma is an experience that's kind of teed up for us to have, for our soul to learn through, and we're not in control of it, it's something that might have happened in a past life, this life or another life, where there's a rebalancing of the energies that were in play during those quote-unquote events. Now, you've heard us say again and again, all events are neutral, but thoughts are things. So as these experiences come forward again in our contracts and in our soul setup, for us to experience these things, our highest way of getting through these things and experiencing these things is to operate from our higher consciousness, acceptance, allowance, and forgiveness. Because when we're accepting, we're not reacting, we're responding. When we're forgiving, we're not judging and condemning and attacking as a response. We're just allowing and accepting what's going on. So we are releasing that karmic load, that karmic. Again, I don't like using the term debt, but it's basically a balancing of vibration. And so we come back into balance vibrationally from past experiences by revisiting those experiences, sometimes being on the other side of the coin, as an example, with a karmic event. But these are not punishments. There's nothing wrong with them, et cetera, et cetera. The free will part comes in where you get to choose. Are you going to react? Are you going to respond? Right? Because you're accountable for your thoughts and you're accountable for your actions. If I'm reacting and I'm acting out of anger, a grievance, a vengeance, get even with somebody, something happened to me, and I'm judging that event as, and I want to get even with that other person, I'm creating more karma. But if I am releasing it by forgiving it, that is moving back before I gave judgment and accepting and allowing what's happened and saying, okay, what's the lesson? The lesson is I don't need to react or respond to those energies. I can forgive all of that because I can see that those are responses and reactions, if you will, reactions in particular from the egoic mind, right? So I can let it all go. The free will part comes in where, yes, in this life, you are journeying and you are experiencing the reflection of your thoughts, right? And you have free will to have free thoughts, and you can think, if you will, from the egoic mind and create, experiences that cause you stress or whatever, or you can check out of that connection with your fearful mind, your thinking mind, and go to this higher consciousness and connect with your true self and just simply allow the voice of God, which is your true self, the Holy Spirit, nothing more than your right mind, to be the voice you express as, okay? Because you're either expressing as the voice of fear or you're expressing as the voice of love. That's always a choice, and that's where free will comes in. Free will to release past karmic events that are re-experiencing in this incarnation and releasing them and forgiving them and letting them go and growing and graduating through those experiences, or, kicking. I used to use this expression now at the risk of trying not to insult anybody. The more you kick a turd, the worse it stinks. So if you kick back when things happen and you're having experiences that you're not happy about, then you can just kick, it's just going to stink worse. In other words, it's going to come right back because you're sending out that same vibration and amplifying that vibration potentially. Now, in the example that Colleen brought up about a neighbor, someone who died from, was that an accident? Was that karma? The ego might try to work itself through those questions, but that's really not important. What's important is to tell the ego to just let it go, because we don't know all of the interactions that have happened over thousands, if not millions of lifetimes of all of the individuals involved. And we can place judgment, was that good or bad? Everything that God is doing is good. God is always good, right? And all of these experiences that look high or low, whatever they may be, they're all good. Everything is good because everything is God. So God, if you will, through the Holy Spirit and through our true self and our soul and our personality, we are growing and graduating into higher and higher consciousness. So this is the evolution of humanity. And this is the second coming. This is what is happening. There are some actors who are acting carelessly or thoughtlessly, and there's others who are acting out intentionally, being outside of love. Some people call that evil. Evil is just a label for something that is less than, maximal love, right? Or being connected to your soul or your true self. And so the point of me saying all that is, instead of spending time trying to figure out, was that karma or was that an accident or any of those things, it's been said many, many times, there are no accidents. Not in, I think, what I would say are contracted experiences, but yes, we can do something ignorant, step over the edge of the cliff, so to speak, on a slippery slope and have, an experience of death that we really hadn't scheduled for ourselves, or, jump out of an airplane, a perfectly fine airplane with a parachute that doesn't work or something. I think we can do things out of ignorance and out of challenging our existence that I like to classify those as accidents. But when it comes to the normal events, things like sickness and family events and things like that, most of those are just working themselves through into higher and higher expressions of love over time, over lifetimes. So I'll leave it there. What question do you want to ask from that explanation, Jason?
Yeah, I really love that. And when I was in Indonesia, the Hindi people there would say that their karma affects their children 7 lifetimes forward and 7 lifetimes backwards. And, they were a very loving, peaceful culture, and it was a beautiful experience. That's karma. And I would think free will is the choice to also be present. That's free will, would you say?
Absolutely. You're either choosing fear or love. And someone else's activities are not accrued to you or your children at all. Now, your children have your same DNA, right? But your DNA is mixed with your spouse's DNA or their other parent's DNA. So they're going to have a different mixture of physicalness and DNA structures and things like that. But what I'm saying is when there are religious beliefs that you get, 21 virgins when you kill somebody else, and now you're going to be rewarded in heaven with 21 virgins. Does that sound a little egoic? Is there any chance that maybe that's a male energy, egoic insanity? Well, of course it is. Sure. So we are the ego mind does its best to make God in its own image, right? But your experiences are not the result of your parents' experiences. You chose your parents, and they did the best they could, and you did the best you could until you moved to a place where you were separated from your parents and on your own. But your children are not responsible. You go out and kill somebody doesn't make your children responsible for that. And their children and those are all egoic constructs. It's all BS. But those are religions, which are, by and large, starting to be questioned on a whole different level now. The second coming is coming, right? Energy's changing. Have we noticed how much being revealed already, even in our country and other countries, about the corruption within our governments, as an example? The light is coming, right? And some of these false concepts and constructs will be challenged, and some will be released. But we, as individual aspirants to an evolved consciousness, by learning the truth, and the truth is being shared with us by Jesus and by other ascended masters and teachers on a level that this planet has never experienced before, and it's happening very, very. The rapidity of this acceleration is very noticeable. And it's happening. A lot of people are going to get it. I was listening to someone that is, I'm going to say he's a pretty devout Christian, fundamental Christian, who has a pretty large audience and a presence. And he was talking the other day about, he saw something on TV and he started crying. And he's like, real men don't cry, blah, 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 this kind of stuff. And he's like, I can't believe that I'm crying. He said, I don't know what's wrong with me. Right? What's wrong with him is nothing. What's right with him is his soul is waking up. And we go through a period of tenderness. And so tears are healing. And so when we see love and we begin to recognize love where it's at, and we start getting, tender about it or emotional about it, or we feel the vibration and we feel a sense of gratitude and appreciation. Yes, I cry all the time, every day, pretty much, right? Because there's so much to be grateful for. There is so many blessings happening. And as we all are evolving, the point of my sharing this short story is, even for those who don't realize what's happening to them, we are waking up as a conscious race of humanity. Is starting to, the consciousness level and the vibration of the planet. Everything's changing. So we're all going to go through these things, and we will ultimately, over time, over the next 3 or 4 generations, specifically is going to be quite dramatic, as more and more people that have not attained a certain level of consciousness will not be returning to this planet, and so they'll be going to another type of planet. But the point is, this planet is going through a tremendous conscious evolution at a very rapid rate.
Yes, and we can see that visibly. We can feel that energy around us, and it is pretty incredible how fast it is happening, especially when you compare it historically for thousands of years, and now it just seems to be unfolding before our eyes. So one more question on this subject, and then we can wrap it up, Brother T. But the forks in the road when we come to and we come to making a decision, and maybe it's not as easy as a right or wrong decision, but these decisions of free will, after we make it and we start down that path, does that change something? Is that change what our lesson is going to be if we try to act with not an egoic action? We're honestly just trying to do 2 different things. I'm not going to say good or evil or good or bad. I'm just saying we have a fork in the road and we choose one direction. Does that completely change our life, or is it going to be the same anyway?
Well, I guess that depends on the energy around the decision. If you're talking about whether or not you're going to murder somebody, that would be probably a lot of energy around that choice. If you're talking about whether or not you're going to take a left or a right at the end of the driveway, maybe not so much energy. One might be completely life-changing. The other one might be just a brief interlude with an experience of another brother or sister that you didn't expect.
Sure.
So every event is neutral? Or what's the impact of every event? They're all neutral. Think about that. Every event is neutral. So no matter which way you take, which fork you take, what's really happening there, Jason, and I'm glad you brought it up, is that you're either learning, and you're going to learn, but you're either learning at a high level or you're learning at a low level. And at the low level, it's very painful, can be very challenging and very painful, but the lessons are there. But every time we choose a pathway of fear and separation, we're going to experience more challenge and more struggle. And when we choose to operate from love, we're going to experience more joy and more peace. The same lesson is there, right? So the only free will that we really have is to operate from a choice of love or to operate from a choice of fear, to operate from a choice of unity and union, right, with your true self, or operate from separation from God, which is all that is. I think I'm a sovereign, separate person, and I can't trust anything or anybody, and God's not here, I don't see God. In other words, I am seeing everything through the eyes and lens of separation. Or I'm seeing every choice, every decision, and every event through the eyes of union, which is the voice of God, right? So free will itself is something that ultimately is discovered to be just a choice to be operating in unity with the will of God. Father, thy will be mine. That's a free will choice. Or I'm going to do it my way, and I'm not going to listen to that because I'm going to figure it out on my own. I got to do this on my own. You can't trust anybody. If you want something done, do it yourself. There are so many people that are operating from a consciousness of avoidance and dismissive and avoidance, and they're seeing everything as separate. They see everybody's a threat, et cetera, et cetera. And so the choice of free will is, am I operating in separation or am I operating in unity with my true self? That's your free will choice. It looks like free will over here with the ego, but you're just making choices between illusions. Is that really a choice? I have an imaginary orange and an imaginary apple. Which one's best? What difference does it make? They're both imaginary. They're both illusions. Choices made through the egoic mind are all one choice: to be separate and operate in illusion. Period. Period. Period.
I love that, Brother T. And it reminds me of one of my favorite books when it says, when you're at this vibration, other people will come play on your playground, in your sandbox. You get to enjoy the vibration of other people that are seeking enlightenment and seeking to be the Word of God. And I'm so happy that I can be part of the second coming with you, Brother T, and help our community live and acknowledge this vibration and be in this vibration of love. And thank you for showing me.
I want to say, Jason, but you're choosing that result or that effect at every vibrational level. If you're going to hang out with thieves, if you've heard the expression "a den of thieves."
Sure.
That is an attractive magnetic field at a certain vibration, right? And so you're playing in a sandbox with a bunch of people that are operating wherever you are, regardless, wherever you are, you're always attracting people who are at your level of consciousness. You might be hanging out at the bars on Saturday night or the church on Sunday morning. There's going to be a difference in consciousness there, by and large, right? Absolutely. I'm not saying that the churches are always wrong and the bar right, or the bars are always wrong at all. There are many lessons. I've learned lessons at bars when I was young, right? And aggressive and operating from my egoic mind. We can learn the hard way or we can learn the easy way. We will learn, right? But we're making the choice of when we decide to operate through love. And you're right. When we're operating at the higher consciousness, we're going to experience more of that consciousness. But we're doing exactly the same thing when we're operating at a consciousness of fear. Oh, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. I'm going to experience what I'm worried about. I'm attracting it as an experience.
Right. Beautifully put. And I think that's a wrap. Okay. Colleen, thank you so much for your question. And we encourage all of you to be involved and write some comments to us. I don't want to think of all of them. So thank you, Colleen. That was a great question. And please send me right there in the YouTube remarks. Just give it to me, and you can always get in touch with Brother T directly also. And there's directions through the Substack page there. It's a beautiful community that we're developing here. I thank you so much. Again, support.truethought.org if that calls to you. Otherwise, just like, share, subscribe, and share the love. Thank you, Brother T. Have a great week.
I'm glad to be here. I love you, Jason. And we will see you guys in the next episode of The Second Coming. God bless you. Bye-bye.
God bless.